What would your life look like if you stopped asking for permission and finally claimed your own authority? Think about it for a moment. Most people spend years, even decades, waiting for others to approve their choices, waiting for society to validate their decisions, waiting for a green light that never really comes. But Carl Jung believed that this endless search for permission is not just a harmless habit. It is one of the deepest traps of the human psyche. It keeps us small, dependent, and afraid to step into who we truly are. Have you ever caught yourself holding back, second-guessing a decision, or waiting for someone to reassure you that it's okay to move forward? You're not alone. Almost everyone does it. And yet, this habit might be silently killing your freedom. Jung's dark wisdom suggests that when we constantly look outside ourselves for approval, we surrender our own inner power. We hand over control of our lives to bosses, partners, parents, or even strangers on social media. It may feel safe, but in reality, it leaves us living as guests in our own existence. You've probably felt this before, that nagging hesitation, that inner voice saying, "What if they don't like it? What if I'm wrong?" But what if that voice isn't really yours? What if it's the echo of a lifetime of conditioning, urging you to stay obedient instead of authentic? The truth is, the world doesn't reward those who wait for permission. It rewards those who step forward with conviction, those who decide to rule their lives rather than rent them. Jung believed that our shadow, the hidden, unexpressed part of ourselves, thrives on our fear of rejection. Each time you silence your own desires to gain approval, your shadow grows darker, feeding off the parts of you that remain unseen. And yet, paradoxically, it is in facing this shadow that you discover your real strength. So let me ask you again, how much of your life has been lived for the sake of pleasing others? How many times have you said no to yourself just to say yes to someone else? If you've ever felt the frustration of knowing you could do more, be more, live more, but you keep waiting for permission that never comes, this message is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might change the way you look at yourself, your choices, and your freedom. Carl Jung's dark wisdom isn't comfortable. It challenges the very foundation of how we've been taught to live. But if you dare to embrace it, you'll uncover a path to authenticity, inner power, and the ability to rule your own life without apology. The question is, are you ready to stop waiting and start living? Because what comes next may surprise you. And maybe as you hear this, something inside you is already stirring. Memories of times when you held back, when you wanted to take a step but stopped to ask for permission that never came. If that resonates with you, I'd love to know your story. Share it in the comments, not just for me, but for everyone who's part of this community. You might be surprised how many people feel the same way, and your words could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this message is making sense to you, if it touches something deep inside, take a moment to like this video. It may seem like a small action, but it tells me that these ideas matter, and it helps push this conversation out to more people who are also searching for meaning and freedom. Most importantly, if you want to continue exploring Jung's dark wisdom and the timeless lessons of philosophy and psychology, make sure to subscribe. This channel exists to bring these powerful ideas into our daily lives, and your subscription is what allows this work to keep growing, to keep reaching others who need it. Your presence here doesn't just support the channel, it shapes the direction of this journey we're building together, because what we are uncovering isn't just theory, it's a way of reclaiming yourself, piece by piece, moment by moment. And the next step on this path takes us even deeper into what it truly means to stop asking for permission and finally rule your life. From the moment we are children, the world teaches us to look outside for approval. Parents reward us when we behave according to their expectations. Teachers mark us with grades that define our worth in the classroom. Later, bosses decide if our effort is enough, if we are worthy of recognition or opportunity. Even strangers, online people we will never meet, hold the power to validate us with a simple like or dismiss us with silence. Over time, this conditioning becomes so ingrained that we barely notice it. We hesitate before making decisions, waiting for invisible permission slips to appear, terrified of making the wrong move on our own authority. But this habit has a hidden cost. Every time we delay a decision in search of approval, we hand away a piece of our freedom. Every time we silence a desire to fit in, we dilute the essence of who we are. We trade authenticity for acceptance, believing it will bring peace, when in truth it only deepens the emptiness. The hours we lose waiting for someone else's green light accumulate into years of wasted potential. And soon we find ourselves wondering why life feels like it belongs to someone else. This is not just about following rules, it is about shaping an entire mentality that traps us in dependency. Instead of developing inner authority, we construct our identity on borrowed voices. The impact is subtle but profound. Our decisions are no longer our own, our transformation is stalled, and our journey becomes a performance for an audience we can't even see. The truth is, seeking constant validation keeps us from accessing the deeper layers of our being. It blinds us to the hidden revelations waiting in the bastidors of our psyche, where our shadow and our true power reside. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the permission trap is more than a habit. It's a way of life that demands to be questioned. What happens when you stop measuring your worth by the applause of others? What truths emerge when you finally listen to yourself instead of the crowd? These are the questions Jung's dark wisdom forces us to confront, and they carry the potential to shift everything about how we see ourselves and the world around us. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." Carl Jung believed that true individuality is not discovered in the light of approval but in the shadows we often try to avoid. His dark insight was simple yet unsettling. Every time we ask for permission to live, to act, to speak our truth, we are not just showing politeness. We are hiding. We are hiding from responsibility, from the weight of making our own decisions, and from the uncomfortable reality that freedom always comes with risk. Jung argued that our constant need for validation is really a disguise for fear, a refusal to confront, the raw, untamed parts of ourselves that we keep buried deep within. This is where the idea of the shadow becomes central. The shadow is everything about us that we repress, the anger, the ambition, the desires we deny, the impulses we call unacceptable. And yet this shadow is not our enemy. It holds the very energy that can transform us. By always asking for permission, we avoid awakening this inner force. We cling to safety, but in doing so, we betray our own potential. It is easier to say, "I'm waiting until someone tells me it's okay," than to face the terror of stepping into our own authority. But in that avoidance, we remain half alive, fragments of what we could be. Jung's perspective challenges us to see that individuality only emerges when we dare to face this inner darkness. To stop asking for permission is to accept responsibility for both the light and the shadow within. It means no longer blaming society, parents, or circumstance for holding us back. It means recognizing that the chains were never locked. We've simply been too afraid to pull them off. This truth may be uncomfortable, but it carries a profound liberation. The realization that you already hold the power you've been waiting for. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because Jung's dark wisdom doesn't stop here. It leads us toward an even more challenging revelation about fear, rejection, and the hidden ways we give up our authority. Fear of rejection is one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior, and Jung believed it was at the very core of the shadow. Think about how many decisions are not really made by you, but by that silent fear whispering, "What if they don't accept me? What if they turn away?" This fear drives us to seek constant approval, not because we truly need it, but because we are terrified of being cast out, judged, or misunderstood. Each time we silence a part of ourselves to avoid rejection, we are feeding the shadow. We push down our anger, our creativity, our ambition, even our desires, pretending they don't exist. On the surface, it looks like conformity, but underneath, those suppressed parts don't disappear. They gather strength in the dark, shaping us from within. This is why so many people feel torn inside. On one hand, they present a carefully polished self to the world, the version that is most likely to be accepted. On the other hand, there is an unexpressed self, locked in the shadows, demanding to be seen. The clash between these two selves creates inner conflict, anxiety, and even resentment. We may appear stable to others, but deep down, our identity feels fragile because it is built on avoidance rather than truth. The more we run from rejection, the more we reject ourselves. Jung's insight forces us to ask, what are we really afraid of losing? Often, it is not survival, but image, our place in the eyes of others. Yet clinging to this illusion comes at a high cost. We trade authenticity for acceptance and end up with neither. To live authentically, We must be willing to face rejection, because only then can we stop suppressing the very parts of us that hold vitality and power. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because understanding the shadow's hunger for expression leads us directly to the archetype of authority and why reclaiming it is essential for ruling your own life. Carl Jung taught that within the collective unconscious live patterns of behavior and symbols he called archetypes, universal images that shape the way we think, feel, and act. One of the most powerful is the archetype of authority. From childhood, we project this archetype onto figures around us. The parent who tells us what is right or wrong, the teacher who decides whether our answers are good enough, the boss who determines if our work has value. This projection continues into adulthood, often unconsciously. Every time we wait for someone to approve our choices, we are handing the authority archetype over to another person, placing them in charge of our freedom. But here lies the hidden truth. The authority archetype was never meant to live outside of us. It is a part of our psyche, a source of inner leadership waiting to be claimed. When we refuse to embody it, we remain dependent, always looking outward for guidance and permission. This is why so many people feel powerless. They have exiled their own authority and allowed it to rule them from the shadows, wearing the mask of their parents, partners, bosses, or society itself. Reclaiming this archetype is a radical act of transformation. It requires us to recognize that the authority we fear and admire in others is actually a mirror of our own potential. To integrate it means to stop projecting and start embodying, to take responsibility for our decisions, to accept both the risks and rewards of living authentically. The shift is profound. Once you internalize the authority archetype, you no longer beg for permission, because you understand that you are the one who grants it. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because reclaiming authority is only the beginning. The real test lies in moving from obedience to authenticity, and that shift changes everything about how we live and lead ourselves. For most of our lives, we are trained to obey. Obedience is praised as a virtue. Follow the rules, respect the system, do what is expected. And on the surface, it seems harmless, even useful. Obedience creates order, keeps society functioning, and avoids conflict. But Carl Jung warned that when obedience becomes the foundation of our identity, we lose sight of who we truly are. We become experts at following instructions, but strangers to our own inner voice. The danger is not obedience itself, but the way it conditions us to silence authenticity in favor of external approval. Authenticity, however, is not about breaking rules recklessly or living in chaos. It is about alignment. To live authentically means that your actions arise from your inner truth, not from fear or the need to conform. It is a subtle but radical shift. Instead of asking, "What will they think if I do this?" you begin asking, "Is this true to me?" That one change rewires the way decisions are made. Suddenly, choices are no longer filtered through the eyes of others, but through the integrity of your own being. This does not mean life becomes easier. In fact, living authentically often requires greater courage because it brings you face to face with discomfort, risk, and sometimes rejection. But it also unlocks a deeper sense of meaning. Each step taken from authenticity strengthens your identity rather than weakening it. You stop living on borrowed definitions of success and start building a life rooted in your own values. Jung believed this shift was essential for transformation. Without authenticity, individuality remains trapped in obedience, hidden behind masks. With authenticity, every decision becomes an act of self-creation, and in that process, you begin to rule your life not with arrogance but with inner authority. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because the path to authenticity requires something more than awareness. It demands courage, the courage to rule your own life and face what comes with it. The courage to rule your life begins with a decision, an invisible line you choose to cross. It is not about dominating others, manipulating situations, or forcing control over the world around you. Jung's wisdom makes it clear. Ruling your life is about sovereignty, about claiming the throne within your own psyche. It means you are no longer a guest in your own existence, politely waiting for someone else to serve you a seat at the table. The moment you stop asking for permission, you stop living like a visitor, and you begin to live as the rightful owner of your life. But courage is required, because this choice comes with weight. To rule your life is to accept full responsibility for your path, the victories and the failures, the clarity and the mistakes. Many avoid this responsibility because it feels heavy, but the irony is that the burden of living without sovereignty is far heavier. Living under constant permission means living under constant doubt, a life shaped by fear of rejection and controlled by external voices. Courage is the force that cuts through that cycle. When you step into sovereignty, you realize that freedom is not granted by institutions, bosses, or even loved ones. It is claimed through the authority of your own decisions. This doesn't mean recklessness, it means alignment with your inner truth. The courage to rule is the courage to stand firm when others question your choices, to remain steady when the path feels uncertain, to trust that your inner compass carries more wisdom than the shifting approval of the crowd. This is why Jung called us to confront our shadow, because only by facing what we fear can we truly lead ourselves. To rule your life is not about perfection, it is about ownership. It is about declaring, "This is my journey, and I will walk it fully." Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because courage alone is not enough. What truly anchors sovereignty are the practical steps that transform insight into action. Jung's wisdom becomes truly powerful when it moves from theory into practice. It's one thing to understand the trap of permission in your mind, but another to notice it, operating in your daily life. The first step is awareness. Begin to recognize the moments when you hesitate, when you stall a decision because you're secretly waiting for someone else to nod in approval. It could be something small, like posting an idea online or voicing an opinion in a meeting, or something larger, like changing careers or ending a relationship. Catch yourself in the act of deferring to invisible judges. That recognition alone is the doorway to transformation. The second step is confronting your shadow. Ask yourself honestly, what fear is driving this need for permission? Is it fear of rejection, fear of failure, or fear of being seen for who you really are? Jung believed that by bringing these fears into the light, we weaken their hold over us. Write them down, speak them aloud, expose them to consciousness instead of letting them lurk unchallenged in the dark corners of the psyche. This confrontation is not about erasing the shadow, but about integrating it, turning what once paralyzed you into a source of strength. The third step is action, and it must be deliberate. Start small. Make one choice today without seeking validation. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is proof that you're breaking the old pattern. Over time, these small acts accumulate, training your psyche to trust itself again. This is how sovereignty is built, not through grand gestures, but through repeated moments of quiet defiance against the urge to wait for permission. Each step affirms your authority. Each decision becomes a declaration that you are no longer a guest in your own life. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because while practical steps set the path, the cost of never taking them reveals why urgency is essential. If you keep waiting for approval, life will pass by while you're standing at the door, hoping to be invited in. Jung's wisdom makes it unmistakably clear. The invitation must come from within. This is the cost of never acting. You don't just lose opportunities, you lose pieces of yourself. Every decision delayed is energy trapped in limbo. Every dream postponed becomes a silent weight pressing down on your spirit. You begin to live in the shadows of what if, a ghost of the person you could have been. The tragedy of waiting is subtle. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and suddenly you look back and realize the permission you were waiting for never arrived. The world did not stop you. You stopped yourself. And the bitter truth is that no one will ever knock on your door to grant you the authority to live fully. Parents, teachers, bosses, even friends may encourage you, but they cannot give you what you refuse to claim. Life will not pause until you feel ready. This endless hesitation erodes identity. When you avoid action long enough, you forget what your inner voice even sounds like. Choices become mechanical, shaped by fear rather than desire. You may succeed outwardly, fitting into society's molds, but inwardly you remain fractured, unsure of who you are. That fracture is the real cost, living a life that looks complete on the outside, but feels empty at its core. Jung's dark wisdom doesn't sugarcoat this reality. He tells us plainly that transformation requires risk, and the refusal to act is itself a decision to stay bound, a decision to surrender sovereignty. The longer we wait, the deeper the shadow grows, and the harder it becomes to reclaim authority. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because seeing the cost of inaction is only half the picture. The real shift comes when we embrace the freedom and power that appear the moment we finally stop waiting and step into our own authority. Carl Jung's dark wisdom reminds us of something many would rather ignore. Freedom isn't granted, it's claimed. The world is full of structures, rules, and voices telling us who we should be, how we should behave, and when we are allowed to act. But the truth is, no one can give you permission to live your own life. The authority you've been waiting for is already inside you. The moment you stop asking for permission, you stop living as a visitor in your own existence. You step into the role of ruler, not of others, but of yourself. And that shift changes everything. Think about how powerful that realization really is. To rule your life means accepting both the beauty and the weight of responsibility. It means no longer hiding behind excuses or waiting for someone to save you. It means embracing your shadow, facing your fears, and discovering that authenticity is worth more than any approval. It may not always feel comfortable, but it will always be real. And in that reality lies transformation, the chance to live a life that belongs wholly to you. So let me ask you directly, what's one area of your life where you've been waiting for permission? Maybe it's a decision you've delayed, a dream you've silenced, or a truth you've avoided. This is the moment to name it, write it down, and if you feel called, share it here in the comments. By speaking it, you begin the process of reclaiming your power. Your voice matters here, because this is more than just a video. It's a conversation, a gathering of people daring to rule their own lives. And your presence adds to the impact, inspiring others to see that they are not alone in this struggle. Together, we can create a space where hidden strength comes to light and where waiting ends and living begins. If you've made it all the way to this point, it probably means this message spoke to something inside you. That's exactly why this channel exists, to bring insights that challenge, inspire, and remind you of the power already within. So if you want to keep walking this path with me, make sure to subscribe. That way you'll always have these reflections close at hand when you need them most. And I'd love to know who stayed with me until the very end. Drop a comment saying, "This message was for me," so I can see your part of this journey too. It's those small signs of connection that turn these ideas into a living community. If the conversation we had today meant something to you, go ahead and give this video a like. It tells me this is the kind of content worth creating more of, and it deepens the bond we've built through these words. There's another video waiting right here that continues this exploration. Click on it, and let's keep moving forward together. You'll see how it adds another layer to everything we've just uncovered.